around in the early to mid 2000s, then you definitely know DC Shoes. DC is one of the largest companies in the skateboarding industry and have been around since the early 90s. They revolutionized the skateboarding apparel industry and helped usher skate culture into the mainstream. Co-created by rally car legend Ken Block, who these days is more well known for his involvement with Hoonigan than with the skate world, but nonetheless, have you ever wondered how both he and DC Shoes got their start? Well, let's find out. I'm Nate the Great from TakeFlight214.com, and this is the history of Ken Block and DC sneakers. But before we get started, don't forget to smash that like button for me. It's the best way to get the YouTube algorithm to notice us and to help us grow into a bigger channel. But with that being said, let's jump right in. Growing up, Ken Block wanted to be an architect originally. He loved to draw and was attracted to the aesthetic of design. He also loved extreme sports like snowboarding and skateboarding and riding dirt bikes. But once he became an adult, he decided to do the grown-up thing and get a 9-to-5. But he soon realized that the career of an architect didn't really appeal to him as much as art did. So Ken decided to quit his job and move to Colorado to become a self-proclaimed snowboard bum. He spent a few years learning the craft and meeting professional snowboarders and befriending locals. But he realized that his personal ability was limited and that he was unlikely to turn his love for snowboarding into a professional venture, so Ken packed his things up and moved back home out west. He now knew that he didn't want to go back to the suit and tie world, and he didn't have the skills to be a pro snowboarder. But he always loved art. So he decided to go to art school. And while going to college in Palomar, California, Ken became good friends with Damon Way, the older brother of legendary skateboarder Danny Way. Together, Ken and Damon combined their love for adventure sports and artistic design and began selling niche clothing in snowboard shops back in Colorado. The original name of the brand was 8 Ball. They managed to gain a bit of a following due to the fact that Damon's brother Danny helped endorse the brand. And between Danny's pro skate connections and Ken's contacts back in Colorado, 8 Ball soon expanded to a 750 square foot warehouse that is, before expanding again and creating Doors clothing brand. In 1993, the whole business was incorporated in Circus Distribution Inc., but problems were on the horizon. Another company came along claiming that they had the rights to the name 8 Ball. So rather than putting up a fight, Ken and Damon decided to just drop the name altogether. It was also around this time that the guys decided to incorporate sneakers into their lineup, and thus DC Shoes was born. It's been debated on how they came up with the name DC. Some say it was named after the first 2 pro skaters they worked with, being Danny Way and Colin McKay. But it's more likely that it stemmed from the Doors clothing moniker that they already had. Either way, DC Shoes were revolutionary in the sneaker world. Prior to DC, you had Vans, but most people skated in random sneakers, as the skate shoe thing wasn't really a industry yet. DC Shoes saw a gap in the market and set out to create technologically advanced skate shoes, as they believed that skateboarders were athletes too and needed footwear to fit their sport. Now, we can't talk about DC Shoes without mentioning Rob Dyrdek. Rob had been skating pro since 1991, and in 95, he was brought over to the DC team and launched his first signature shoe, the RD1. DC promoted their brand by using professional endorsements, and by 1997, they had a team of 8 pros who were on a world tour showcasing their skills and the DC brand as they went along. And by the end of 1997, DC had also put together a motocross and surf team, seriously cementing their footing in the extreme sports market. Through their fantastic coverage of pros events like Danny Way jumping 10 feet from a helicopter onto a DC emblazoned ramp, something that Ken Block would take note of, but more on that later. The DC brand not only took over the sports market, it began to really grow in the fashion scene too. DC produced its first television advert in 1999 alongside its first kids line. And by the early 2000s, DC was shipping globally and taking on general sports and fashion footwear giants like Nike and Reebok. DC built an indoor training facility called Vista TF for its skateboard team in 2001, and in 2003, Rob Dyrdek and DC Foundation founded the first skate plaza in Kettering, Ohio. Sorry if I mispronounced that. The company also constructed a training and testing center for snowboarders, the DC Mountain Lab near Park City, Utah. By this time, DC had been around under Ken and Damon since the 90s. They had accomplished more than they ever imagined and revolutionized skate apparel. 2 million pairs of DC shoes were produced in 2001. Australian surf manufacturer Billabong International offered to buy DC in 2002, however, the deal fell through. The film DC Video celebrated the aerial exploits of DC's two original endorsers, Danny Way and Colin McKay. It took them 3 years to complete and was finally released in July of 2003. After years of involvement with the company, Danny Way and Colin McKay received equity stakes in DC Shoes in September of 2003. DC's Artist Project produced limited runs of shoes designed in collaboration with artists like Shepard Fairey, before he sold out of course, Thomas Campbell, and Phil Frost. DC also launched the new brand of shoes known as Fallen with popular pro skater Jamie Thomas in October of 2003. Fallen shoes reflected the edgier fashions preferred by core skaters as opposed to the more general skateboarding market targeted by the DC shoe brand. In 2004, Block and Wave finally got an offer that they couldn't refuse and made the difficult decision to sell DC shoes to Quicksilver. Block remained a key player in his company and became DC's chief brand officer, which gave him the chance to keep DC's brand direction and philosophies, as well as affording him time to branch out into other activities like rally driving. When DC sponsored Travis Pastrana, he decided to make the move from the motocross world to rally. Ken Block and DC supported him and continued the sponsorship. But realizing that this could be an opportunity not to be missed, Ken Block contacted Travis's racing team and asked how he too could get in on the action. Well, surprise, surprise, Ken Block turned out to have a natural aptitude for rally racing, and in his first year on the American rally circuit, Block earned the title of Rookie of the Year and a spot on the Subaru team. In 2010, Ken Block switched over from Team Subaru to Team Ford. His success continued in the open class Ford Fiesta, and Ken Block saw his 5th win in the rally in 100 Acre Wood. By 2015, Ken Block announced that he was switching most of his focus to his new company, Hoonagan. And being a member of the Ford team, he had access to build the famed Hoonagan, a 1965 Mustang build that made more horsepower than Zeus himself, and would introduce a whole new word to the lexicon, hooning. The Hoonagan and Hoonagan as a company deserve a video all unto itself, and for that reason I won't go too much into it here, but needless to say, it will spawn a whole new thing. All in all though, Ken Block and team managed to make a hell of a run. They built a long-lasting brand that's still around in one form or another to this day. Then, once he had wrung the rag dry, he moved on to another passion of his and made good there too. I mean, you gotta give it to the man. He knows how to build culture. But what do you think? Were you a fan of DC shoes? What about Hoonagan? Hit us in the comments section and let us know. Also, if you want us to do a video on Hoonagan as a company, then also let us know that, and who's to say, maybe we'll do one in the future. But if you made it this far, then that means that you obviously liked the video, so if so, don't forget to smash that like button for us. As I always say, liking and sharing the video is the best way to help us to continue to grow as a company. And if you want to be updated whenever we drop a new video just like this, then hit the subscribe button and then the notification bell, and that way you will be dinged when each time a new episode drops. But with that being said, I'm Nate the Great from TakeFlight214.com signing out until next time. Peace.